unmuted.
Okay, so Betsy,
Yes.
I think I heard you. Tom,
Here.
thank you. Grace? Grace isn't unmuted yet. Dan, I think, is still out. Mike Moore?
I'm here.
Okay. Steve?
Yes, present.
Okay. Betty?
Yep.
Thank you. Paul, I hear. Ted?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm here. So we're just, Grace, I'm sure will pop back in. And we're good. Okay, move my lunch out of the way. So we left off on page 3 with finance, so we'll go on to audit services, 41502. We have a
Motion to approve the amount of $15,425.
Second.
And Grace, welcome back. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Betsy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Mike Moore,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Pam. Yep,
Yes.
I see you waving. Bob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and yes. So we are, God, I gotta recount again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13-0, yes.
Should be 14, Ginger.
Who'd I miss? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Betsy, Tom, Brad's out, got Grace. Dan, are you back on? No?
No, he said he'd call me when he,
Okay.
but we had 14 at one point, and the only one that's out is Dan, so,
Right,
Oh, you're
which makes us 13.
sorry. 13.
That's okay. I wasn't sure if it was me.
Me.
All right, so let's go down to assessing, 41503.
I move the amount of $59,072.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Me?
Who, me? Betty?
Betty.
Thank you. Okay, any discussion?
I'm just curious what makes up the 55,000. I know we assessed last year, and I've heard a rumor that we're going to do it. There's a move to do it every year. I don't know if that's what that number is, or is there normally that much in it every year?
John?
This is the contract with the assessor. The plan is for every year
to look and measure and list a quarter of the town to make sure the database is accurate, and then once every 5 years to do the update. So if you look back in prior years, this is the contract that we have with the assessor. He's also going to be very much involved with dealing with abatements from this last assessment update.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none. Betsy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Mike Moore,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
thank you. Bob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and yes. So with 13-0. Okay, we're on a roll. We're going to page 4. So we have tax collector, town clerk. 41504. We have a motion.
Motion to the amount of $123,671.
Okay, we
Second.
have a- And Grace is a second. Thank you. Discussion.
I have a general question. Maybe it's a selectman's question. Is the position of town clerk and tax collector set up as a part-time job, or is it a full-time job?
I'm going over to John
It-
Scruton with that.
Full-time.
Okay, it's a remarkably low salary for a full-time job.
I don't argue with you. I believe the salary for the town clerk is set by town meeting.
Right. Thank you.
And that's an elected position.
Yes.
Correct. Are there other questions on the tax collector, town clerk section? Okay, seeing none. Betsy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Grace, where'd Grace go?
She's missing.
She's missing.
He's not
Okay,
in the picture.
not in the picture. She's missing. Okay, so we'll skip
Oh, there she
over.
is.
Oh, there she is. She's back.
Grace, we're doing the voting on the tax collector, town clerk. No,
Yes.
okay, thank you. Mike Moore?
I'll have to wait. Now I forgot what the question is, but yes.
Cute, very cute. Steve,
Yes.
Betty?
It's always a good laugh, I'm telling you.
Yes.
we need the laughs today. I appreciate them. Paul,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and yes. So again, 13-0. Okay, moving on to the treasurer, 41505.
I'll move the amount of $8,263.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Betty.
Bob Young, are you listening to your radio? Yeah, thanks. I hear it's pretty bad out there. Johanna just took 15 minutes to drive from the Congregational Church to home.
Oh, wow.
There are a lot of cars off the road at this point, even a propane truck off in Pittsfield.
Ooh.
Stay home.
Not good.
Who was the
What a
second
what a
on
great-
the treasurer?
That was Betty.
Okay, thank you.
What a great way to have a budget committee meeting.
Hey, at least we're able to do this via Zoom, guys. I'm not pleased about that, but better than sliding off the road. Okay, do we have any discussion on the treasurer section? Okay, seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes, yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And yes, so again, 13-0. Okay, flipping to page 5. We have us.
You might have Alzheimer's or you missed me on that one, but I'll be a yes anyway.
Oh, I did. I'm sorry, Paul.
Hard to miss, I'm pretty big.
Well, I wasn't going there, but since you did. Okay, budget administration, 41509.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $1,060.
Second.
I'd like to second.
Okay, so back. Okay, any discussion on our budget? I think we discussed it all at a previous meeting, so do a roll call. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so we are 14-0. I need a new sheet. Okay, down to trustees of trust funds, 41510.
I move the amount of $3,002.
Thank you, Grace. Who's a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Mike Moore, second.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Betsy?
Abstain.
Okay, Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
I abstain. I'm a trustee.
Thank you. Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, so that is 12-0-2.
Ginger,
Yes.
on that last vote for budget administration, I think you said 14-0 instead of 13-0 on the count.
He did.
No, because we had Dan back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're good.
I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, keep track of me. Somebody's got it. It's a tough job. I appreciate it. Okay, so we are down to legal, 41531.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $15,000 for legal.
Thank you, Dan. Who's second?
Second.
Second.
Thanks, Pam. Do we have discussion on legal? Okay, not seeing anything. So Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yeah.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so that is 14-0.
Just mentioning, my lights just flickered here on
Yeah,
the east
mine,
side.
mine did too up here in
Yeah.
Sherburne Hill, so
Okay,
I was waiting for the vote.
all right, so a reminder, if one of us loses power or internet, call Linda at that number, let her know we will be shutting down the meeting. Don't forget, we're gonna be meeting Tuesday night if we shut down early.
Can you
Okay,
repeat,
if we end up not needing it, we can cancel it Monday night.
can you
Otherwise,
repeat,
we'll be meeting again Monday night at 7. Tom?
can you repeat the number? Just town hall plus Linda?
Correct. And it is, get back in here again. 942-5586, extension 2005.
Can you just do that one more time to confirm?
Certainly, 942-5586, extension 2005.
Thank you.
Everybody have it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's say our prayers, cross our toes, and maybe we can work a little longer.
I can switch to data if necessary, so power failure won't matter for a couple hours.
Okay, whatever works. Just if you lose it completely, call Linda and let her know. Thanks,
I will.
guys. So we are down to claims, judgments, and settlements, 41533.
Madam Chair, I'd like
Move
to
the
move
amount of
$1.
$1.
I think Dan beat you, Betty, so you'll be second.
Okay.
Just letting you know, you're number 2 right now, honey.
Doesn't happen very often.
I'm assuming that there's no discussion over the dollar. Okay, roll call. Betsy? Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so we're 14-0. Next section is Personnel Administration, 41552.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $453,965.
Okay, we've got a motion. Who's a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll go Betty. I had a couple
Okay.
together, so questions?
Betty.
Yeah.
Can you,
Betsy?
I see that employee compensation pool is a new item this year. Can you explain that? Can you also explain what maintenance is for the personnel administration?
I'm going to have John answer that.
John, go ahead.
The police commission and the library trustees place the raises there.
You're breaking up, John.
Okay. I tried to hotline to the computer, but it's still breaking up.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, can you wait, let me just dial back in again then.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Sounds like a Star Wars movie.
Didn't somebody mention Darth Vader earlier?
We do have a Hal.
We do have a Hal.
Alpha too.
Hal, do you want to toss in there while John's calling in?
I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. What are we on?
The question on personnel administration was regarding the new line, the 45,000 for the employee compensation pool.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. So we did have some raises that we made this year, in part because of the difficulty of retaining people, and in part because when we did have to hire people, we had to hire them at a higher rate, which left some of our existing folks well below what we were having to pay new people coming in. So we made some of those adjustments, but we also wanted to make provisions for those that we could not get to or did not get to, that we have at least some money for next year to do that. So it's a portion of that $45,000 is for a cost of living increase for those folks, and the other portion is for the merit component of those.
Why wasn't that just put into the salary lines to start with?
Because we weren't certain exactly how we were going to play it. And I guess to be blunt, given that we have had difficulties with the budget and we were concerned about how the budget committee would feel about it, we felt it was best to show what the amount of the raises were as a separate item so that if you did want to cut them, you could.
Okay, thanks, Hal. Betsy?
Yeah. Incidentally, if Linda could let me in.
Linda, can you let John in?
I'm not sure what you're asking, Ginger.
Susan is the
John's
host.
trying to
Susan needs to let him in.
Susan has to let him in.
Yep.
Oh, Susan, can you let John in?
She's probably not right there either, so.
Yeah, maybe she had to step away.
Let me, I'll call her.
Oh,
Hi. Yeah, I think I'm in there now.
you're in now. Okay, John.
Okay. Yeah, I think Hal explained the purpose of that. The police commission and the library trustees put their raises within their budgets. For all the rest, it was put into a pool that the selectmen could use that was determined based on what a step would come to.
Okay. Are there other questions? Betsy?
So it does reflect the steps exactly because it's a nice round number.
Not exactly, no. It was we did a calculation based upon total payroll for the town after subtracting out library and police, and then did 3%.
Betsy?
I have a question on another line, but you ready for that?
The maintenance line.
No, that somebody else
Somebody-
had that one.
Yeah, the question on the maintenance line, we have to pay for a service that oversees the Section 125.
And I'm drawing a blank, John. What exactly is that?
The section 125 is a flex spending plan.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm retired now, so I don't know about any of that stuff. It's wonderful if you don't have a whole lot to do, but you know.
I think Betsy had another question.
Yes, she did. Betsy, your other question?
Yes. The health and dental line. It's gone up 62,000. I do know from sitting in on meetings last year that there were 2 extra family plans in there, and that's why it's such a surplus this year. So we're not looking for identifiers, but how does this play out? How many family, how many 2-person, how many single? Because we have a rate sheet, but we don't have any numbers that go with it to proof it out.
Yeah, what I did is I did a calculation based upon all the employees that were currently employed as to what their current plan was. In one case, we knew they were getting married beginning of the year, so we did put them in as a different plan. We also, for the employees that weren't hired at the time, we put in a 2-person plan for each person that we didn't know exactly what it would be for when they are hired. The biggest reason that there's so much left this year in the pool is because of all the vacancies that we've had. When a person leaves, there's a period before you hire a person. Then the month they're hired, they've got to go another month before they get coverage. So it's like a 3-month or 4-month period that is lost. But it was done by counting up the number, each employee that's currently employed and estimating for those that were coming on.
Betsy?
So do I assume there are no extras in there this year other than regular employees or regular positions that are going to be filled?
Well, we put in the proposed full-time recreation person at a 2-person plan. We've got the finance person in as a 2-person plan because we're planning to fill that position. Other than that, it's everyone who's currently employed at what they are, with the exception of that one that I mentioned, who we believe their status is changing based upon solid information. So they were put in at the higher plan because of the family change that we know is coming.
Okay. Are there any other questions on personnel administration? Okay, seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan? Oh, Dan just stepped away. Sorry, I just looked at my text. Thanks, Linda.
No, actually, I'm back.
Oh, now you're back. Okay.
Yes.
You're voting on the personnel administration?
Yes, when I move. Yep.
You're okay? You're right. Okay, just checking. Who's next? Michael Moore.
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty? Okay, I'll get back to Betty. She's having a cough jag right now. Paul?
No.
I'm sorry?
No.
No, okay. Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Thank you. And yes, so the count is 13-1.
What was that? 13-1?
13-1. Yep. Okay, page 6. Planning and Development, 41911.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $44,352.
Thank you, Dan. Who's the second?
Sure, I'll
Second.
that.
Okay. Ted, I'm gonna designate you because I heard three voices, but I heard yours louder. You guys got to speak up if you want to jump on this stuff, you know. Okay, Planning and Development, do we have any questions or comments?
Just curious what the 5,000 increase is on the contractor services?
Okay, Pam?
Yeah, oh, I'm right here. I turned around. The question again, please?
There's a question regarding what constitutes the increase on contracted services for planning and development.
Planning and development, what we get, $600, $200? Let me see. I am going to go to Hal. Are you familiar with this one?
Yeah, this is our contract with Stratford Regional Planning.
Thank you.
And we had negotiated with them in terms of what happened this past year and how much extra work we needed. So this reflects what we believe they're going to need next year. I would actually defer to Linda, who I think can speak to it better than I can. If she's willing to speak, I defer to her.
Okay, the 34,400 is the town's contract with Stratford Regional for 32,000, and 2,400 is the town's contract for the annual GIS assessing. So the 32,000 is actually what the contract has been for the last 2 years. And we have been working under a default budget, and it's a not to exceed number. And if you look back, you can, on the actuals, you can see that it hasn't come up to the full amount, but we want to ensure that we can have the services of a professional planner for 12 months out of the year.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions regarding planning and development? Okay, seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve Robinson? Where'd he go?
I don't see him.
I don't
don't
see
know.
him. He's muted. Okay, I'll try back in a minute. Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Thank you. Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And is Steve Robinson back?
I'm back. Yep, sorry.
You're back. Are you voting yay or nay?
I'm going to abstain because I really wasn't listening. I had to do something. So it wouldn't be fair. Sorry. I apologize.
That's all right. I'll get the whip out later.
Uh-oh. Shoot.
And
Sorry,
I'm
Mom.
a yes. So we are 13-0-1. Okay, moving on to ZBA, section 41913.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $2,951.
Thank you, Dan.
Second.
Thank you, Betty. Do we have any questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. Roll call. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Grace,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Mike Moore,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
okay, Betty,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Ted,
I'll abstain on this one. I'm a Z board member.
okay. Well, hang on one
No
second.
compensation.
There's no conflict for you. You don't get a salary or a stipend.
Oh, well, then I vote strongly in favor.
Okay, thank you. Pam,
He's awesome.
Hey, Ted,
Love him.
I like Ted, I'm in favor.
okay, Bob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mike Joben,
Yes.
and yes. So we are 14-0. Okay, Community Hall, 41940.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $6,455.
Second.
Okay, Ted. Questions? I do not see any questions.
Move forward.
So we're good. Okay. Betsy? Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes, sorry, my space bar has been working to temporarily unmute me, but every once in a while it doesn't.
Oh, okay. I didn't know it could do that. Thank
Yeah.
I had the same problem.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Joben?
Yes.
And yes, so we're 14-0. Gotta flip a page. Okay, next section is Town Hall buildings, which are the parade buildings, 41941.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $59,200.
Thanks, Dan.
Second.
Thank you, Betty. Discussion.
Just again, curious about the additional line that's been added, 12,000.
What happened is we divided, we took it out of where, hello?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
I'm muted. Oh, yes. We took it out of highway and felt it belonged here where it was for mowing of the town buildings. You'll notice when we get to highway, their mowing line is impacted by that change.
Okay, great. Other questions or comments? Okay, not seeing any. So, Betsy, what say you?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
No, thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Joben?
Yes.
And yes, so we have 14-0. Okay, we're gonna flip a page. We are now on cemeteries. 41951.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $5,100.
$5,100.
Okay, Dan is the motion. Betty, you want to second it?
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay. Well, you know, you guys are just jumping right in here. Good. Any discussion?
This mowing the same as the previous category?
Yes.
Are there other questions or comments on cemeteries? Okay, seeing none. Betsy? Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yeah.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Jobin? Okay, and yes, so we're 14-0. And we come to insurance. 41961.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $48,908.
Thank you, Dan.
I'll second.
Thanks, Mike.
Sorry, Betty.
No, you're not.
Hey, you got to share the wealth, Betty, you know. Okay, do we have any questions? And I'm sorry, my form is kind of skewed. Can someone read off the amount, the total for me?
Looks like 48,908 looks like to me. So it looks like to mine.
40, yeah, okay, 48,908.
48,908.
Yeah, somehow or another, when my form printed out, it twisted a little bit right there, so I can't see the total. I just want to be sure I had the correct amount. Mike?
Muted.
Mike, you mute. There you go.
I was muted because I was waiting for you to. I have something here for line 550 that says supply cemeteries, but it's under insurance. Is that just my glitch or is that?
Well, I think it got moved because they're not requesting any money on it. It was one of those lines that was in that spot, perhaps erroneously in the last couple of years, I'm guessing. Betsy, do you have another?
It shouldn't have been there. Supplies is 610. So, and you've got 610s above. So it just looks like a glitch that needs to be pulled out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happens is some of these carry forward once a mistake has been made. It's hard to get it out of the system because it keeps wanting to put the line back in because there's something in it within the history that's being calculated.
Right.
But it doesn't belong there. You're right.
Okay. Good catch, because I missed it. Any other questions on the general insurance? Okay, seeing none. Betsy? Betsy, you good?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Thank you. Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so we are 14-0. Next section is Highway Facility Committee, 41974.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $104.
Second.
Okay, and Betty. Any discussion? Yes, Betty.
I got another one of those crinkle ups. The final amount is $104.
Correct.
Find 100 of it, but where's the 4?
$1 a piece in each
Oh,
of the
okay.
4 lines above.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions or comments on Highway Facility Committee? Yes,
Ginger,
Tom.
on my copy, there's this line that is out of place, but it shows supplies with a number that I think is 590.
No. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. The line number is 590, correct.
And in other places, supplies are a 620. Does that make any difference?
I'm going to defer to John.
The one above is 610.
When they set up the system, they should have set it up with 620. I'll agree with you. I don't know why they put the 590 number in, but it won't make any difference on the budget as we're approving it. When a new software system arrives, it's very likely they will redo the chart of accounts, which is all of this numbering, to standardize it and to fix it.
Are there any other questions on the Highway Facility Committee? Okay, seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so we are 14-0. Next section is the Police Commission, 42111.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $6,351.
Thanks, Dan.
Second. Second.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Me, Stephen.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Discussion. Betsy?
This is the other part of earlier. So the salary should be to match the sheet, $3,871.92 instead of the $3,576.
I would offer that if that's going to change, that it be rounded up, just so we're not dealing with pennies. Are there any other questions or comments? What's the committee's feeling about making that adjustment? Do we have a motion?
Total. What's the new total going to be?
I'm sorry?
What is the new total going to be?
We don't know yet unless John can do some quick calculations for us, as he did previously.
It's another $296.
Plus $22 and plus $23 of roll-ups.
Okay, the Social Security and Medicare is an additional 23.
Yes.
So that gives us
$66.70.
Yep. 6670.
okay. So we have a motion. Would Steve, you care to rescind your second?
I'll rescind.
Dan, would you care to rescind your motion and then we can make it clean?
Absolutely.
So the new motion would be,
$6,670.
thank you. Steve, you want to second that again?
Sure, I'll second it.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there further discussion on the police commission? Okay, seeing none. Betsy? Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so we're at 14-0. Okay, page 8. We are at the police department, which is 42112.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $810,344.
Thank you, Dan.
Mike Morris, second.
Thanks, Mike. Discussion. Any questions or anything? Okay, not seeing any. I'm sorry, did someone just say something? Okay. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes. Okay. Page 9 and part of page 10 for the fire department.
Move that the fire department budget of $649,000 be approved.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Second.
All right, who was the first gentleman I heard?
Me.
Thank you, Steve.
Steven. I'm on a roll.
You are. Take that away from Betty.
I don't want to mess with her.
Okay, folks, what's your pleasure? Do we have questions, comments? Betsy?
No, it's only $1, but I'd like to see the dollar put back on the forestry line. And I understand why we took it out of other places, but this is one that's have to be used if there's any brush fires.
Would you like to make that? Yeah, we got to make it a motion in order to do it.
So moved.
Okay, so Smith.
Ginger?
Yes, ma'am.
I just missed the last couple minutes. My phone rang and somebody, I had to try to turn my volume down and then they were cut off and I tried to call them back and they don't connect.
That was me.
Oh,
The internet service blipped, and so I lost.
Oh, okay.
And then I was asking to be let back into the meeting.
okay, but you're all set now, Hal?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I completely missed that. Sorry about that, Hal.
You missed seeing me on the screen, Ginger? Oh,
I did miss seeing you. Yes, I'm sorry. So Linda, where we're at right now, there's been a motion and a second to add $1 back onto line 193 for the forest firefighting. So
Okay.
So we haven't had several adjustments or several lines in the past couple of years, so I'm gonna pick your brain. Do we need to take a vote on each change, or can they be totaled up with a final vote? I just don't remember.
For the dollar ones or in general, are you talking about?
In general, for instance, we've got the one motion and second to add $1 onto that line. If we had any additional changes to this department, does each change need to be voted on separately and then a final vote on the revised bottom line for the department?
Well, you can do it either way. If you vote on each individual line, it does indicate where to the on here the change would occur. I mean,
Bob,
if you're going to determine that anyway, then but you don't need to actually vote on it. You can say you want to do that and then make one final motion to encompass those changes.
That sounds good to me. Bob?
My only suggestion would be, just to make it clear, is that, in other words, in this case, make an amendment to the bottom line so that we know where that was set, and then vote in that bottom line with the additional $1. In other words, you've already got a motion on the floor, or at least people are going to look at that. Look at amending that to bring it up one so that we can put it into that location and then vote on the final number.
Which is what I would definitely do if we don't have any other adjustments. I'm just wondering what we'll do if we have other adjustments.
Can I just amend my
voting on each adjustment then, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we have so I guess we need to vote on putting the $1 in. So let's see. All right, Betsy? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes, for the $1.
Thank you. Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so that amendment passed 14-0. So we'll add $1 to that line. Are there other discussions? Betsy?
I just have a real concern with the part-time line. Now that 2 new full-timers have been hired, that we really need that much in that line.
Yeah,
a lot of part-timers were used, but if now that you've got full-timers, I'm not sure you're going to be using all that.
Hal? Or wait a minute, I'm sorry. I'm going to hold off, Hal. John?
Well, probably I'm going to say the same thing as Hal was going to say, which is when you looked at the schedule, we've had people come in and complain that we weren't covering enough for emergencies. And this part-time line is to hire those people that we need to have to cover in order to have 24/7 coverage as close as we can get. I mean, that's the basic purpose.
Right. Betsy?
Just want to clarify something. I'm not either way. We've never had 24/7 coverage. So people think that we've never had 24/7. Not saying one way or the other, but just want to make that clear. Some people think that we've had 24/7 and we have not. So you would need more full-time people to do that. So just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, actually, you would need 10 they usually figure you need 10 people in order to cover 24/7. But is using part-timers, you save on your retirement, you save in other areas as well. So you have 4 full, and then you have you hire the others to try to get as close as you can for the protection of the community. But I see Hal's got his hand up, Ginger.
Yes, I see it too, but I figured I'd let you finish first. Hal?
Thank you.
Yeah, Betsy, I think you're absolutely right on this. 24/7 was never promised or never achieved. Mark's done of what makes sense for the town, and if you look at the statistics, we are covering approximately, and it varies month to month, but we are covering with our own personnel approximately 90 to 95% of the calls. And I think we're doing that at a fairly cost-effective rate. To take us from where we are now to go to 100% really, really bumps up the price. And we might not necessarily really see that much of a difference in the overall level of service from our emergency people. So from our perspective, it seems like we have a pretty good balance. That said, people have indeed, as John said, indicated they would like to see more coverage. And to that point, the quickest and fastest way for us to do that is via additional part-time coverage. And that's what Mark's attempting to do here. I think we have to watch the statistics and see how to best serve the town. But yeah, adding 6 more full-time people would be very cost prohibitive.
Betsy, and then Matt would like to join in. Go ahead, Betsy.
So I just want to make it clear so that people understand that we've never had full-time.
Right.
And that needs to be clear. Doing it this way to get to that point is cost effective, yes. But a lot of people think we have 24 and we never had 24 even when we went to the 4 that we've got now.
Right.
So they need to know it's not full-time. Yes, a lot of it's covered, but it's not full-time coverage.
Right.
Matt?
I just want to mention that as we were discussing this particular line as the Board of Selectmen, we did mention that, our expectation to the chief was that this line wasn't to be rated for anything outside of part-time coverage. So meaning if he didn't need the full request, that he's going to leave that there, and that the expectations that gets returned to the general fund, assuming that he doesn't use it up. So we were pretty clear on that point when we discussed it.
Right.
Okay, I'd like to offer my 2 cents at this point. I'm looking at what's been expended year to date for the 112 line, the firefighter EMT salary, which appears to be half of what's being requested for the following year, which is down considerably from what was adopted in 2020. The part-time wages up to this point are certainly much higher than what had been adopted for 2020. But I pretty much agree. It almost looks as though we've got the added coverage wage-wise in the full-time. I see the need for part-timers. I'm one of those individuals who has said, we really need more coverage, but not in the context of 24/7. But simply, as I mentioned earlier this morning, most times when I drive by the Narrow Station, there may be the chief's car there if it's Monday through Friday. Rarely do I see a second vehicle, and never on weekends. So my concern is, while we have all of these part-timers, it seems like they're not either being scheduled or offering to take shifts. And there's my concern. So yeah, I think the 100,000 on the part-time wages is too high. Hal?
Betsy had her hand up first, and I'm willing to speak.
Okay, Betsy, I'm sorry.
Just want to say that he hired 2 full-timers. One of those is doing Tuesday and one's doing Friday. The other one's covering the weekends. So they just started, and then a lot of people went down for a week or so for COVID. So now you're back towards full swing. So you should see the coverage now.
Okay, Hal?
Yeah, and I would just like to reemphasize what Matt said. We put the money in there, and really it's a challenge to Mark. You know, people want more coverage, but that means enticing, convincing the people to sign up for the shifts. I personally would be tickled to death if, well, not to death, but very tickled if we were able to use this money. And I think people are asking for the coverage, and I just think we should challenge Mark to do it. And that's one of the things that, you know, we're starting to keep more track of. You know, what kind of hours are they? What are the shifts? What are the schedules? So it's going to get more scrutiny, and I'd rather have him have the chance to do it than cut it off and him not have the opportunity. So that's where I would stand on it.
Point taken. Point taken. Are there other questions or comments regarding anything in the fire department section? And some,
Pam has her hand up.
I'm sorry, who?
Pam.
Oh, Pam, what can I do you for?
I'm over here so quietly. I want to thank my compatriots for their comments, but I also want to add that we are heading into a period of time where we've not been before, and to allow this leeway in the budget. Matt is completely correct that the admonishment was there to make sure the money was used correctly and properly as needed. So we don't know what we're rounding the corner. And if you look at it, you're going to have a lot more people at home in the first quarter of 2021. You're going to have less vacationing and all that, heating systems. You never know, people resorting to wood stoves and more use of that. I think we need to have this buffer in there, and I think it's for public safety. So that's just my point, and I concur with everything coming from the select board.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, our new figure for the fire department, because of the dollar being added, is $649,009. So Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace? Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and yes, 14-0. Another sheet down. Okay, medical services, 42217.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move nothing.
I second nothing.
All right, so I'm cool with that. I'm just trying to remember what the medical services line was for. Bob?
As far as I remember, back when we started looking at the help me out here. It'll come to me. Anyway, there was the requirement that we would test and oversee, and somebody at the fire department had to be responsible for the medical end of it. Hepatitis B.
Oh, okay.
hepatitis
Oh,
C.
that's way back.
That's going way back. And so there was a person who was assigned to oversee that. And so it was set up as a separate line to deal with that. And then as we started looking at how the appropriate, say, in other words, if we had an exposure to something, this person would look over that. I'm assuming that Mark has rolled that into the operations, day-to-day operations, but that had been set up as an individual whose sole responsibility was to look at the health and safety of the EMTs and the firefighters.
So I'm just wondering if we can, if that whole section can be eliminated, or are we going to continue to have a zero section for year after year?
I don't know, maybe Walter would have some sort of input, from his department.
A while to get it out of the cycle.
Yeah.
As John said, there may be history in that line item, and the software doesn't necessarily allow us to delete it completely, but we can certainly look at that and see.
Well, I'm just thinking that way I won't forget and ask the same question next year.
I also would be curious to see how that's being handled now. In other words, who is overseeing, who's sort of like the internal health monitor for the department, because that had been required at one point.
Okay. And I'm sorry, in the course of realizing that it was a zero line, I didn't get who made the motion and who seconded it?
I made the motion.
Dan made the
I
motion.
second.
And Pam seconded. Okay, thank you.
Seconded nothing.
Are we?
All right.
Vote on that.
I'm sorry, Linda?
I don't think you need to vote on that. There's no money in the line.
Well, that makes sense. Then why did I use a space? I don't know. All right, we'll move on. It's getting tough, folks. Okay.
Ginger, before you move on.
Yes, Tom.
I don't think anybody else but me has been using the chat feature, but just to let you know, it's down at the bottom of your screen. And if you click it, you get into chat where you'll find me and Susan Austin talking back and forth. Susan has posted her contact number, which, if it's not mistaken, is 607-322-6232.
Yep.
Is it really 607, Susan?
Yes, that's Cooperstown.
Yeah, rare. Hall of Fame. Or something.
Yes.
What is it? Yeah. Well,
Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm not in it.
What was the
but-
number again?
607-322-6232.
Oh, please, you're reading her number.
So that you can go look it up.
Yes, but we were trying to avoid reading her personal number into a
Fine.
recording.
Oh.
It's been public for a while. It's okay.
You say it every time in the BOS meeting, so.
Yeah, it's okay.
That's how to get back
See,
in.
Hal's got his fingers up here. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just a point of order for you to consider. Um, uh, Earlier in the meeting, the chat was limited to just chatting with Susan. And I think just need to be sensitive that if people chat amongst themselves, the people listening in on YouTube may not be able to hear that dialogue or see that dialogue. And so it might affect their ability to understand what's going on at the meeting.
I did change it so everybody can chat, but
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm not so sure
I
that
hear
we
what
should do
Hal's
that,
saying. It's definitely
but it's up.
try to limit it to just procedure stuff.
It's up to Ginger, but there is a potential for people to have discussions that people on
Right.
YouTube won't hear.
Well, there's another problem as well. If board members are chatting about a vote privately,
Yeah.
Right. That was the
that
the
presents a serious issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would suggest that people have both phone numbers. They have Susan's and they have mine. So you should just shut that off as
Okay.
far as anybody else other than Susan.
From a right to know perspective, I think you're absolutely right.
Correct.
I should mention that the board is not chatting in the background.
No.
If they are, they didn't include me once again.
You're not feeling the love, Pam? I'm sorry.
Well,
we
just
were
when-
talking about you,
I'm
Pam. That's
here.
why we need to meet you.
I need
When
my
Hal couldn't
comfort
get in,
here.
I didn't know that until I saw
Someone loves me.
the phone number. So
And from that perspective, the board is also refraining from texting amongst themselves, via their phone.
I'm having issues with making anyone else the co-host today, and I can't figure out why because I was.
Don't worry about it. We're good.
So,
Don't worry.
okay.
Okay. I'm getting some strange texts from my family members down in Massachusetts. I just know they're there, so I'd like to kind of move on if we can so that I can address them sooner rather than later. So we're all set on the medical services. Let's go on to the building and code enforcement. 42401.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move amount of $38,932.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Betty. Okay, do we have any questions or discussions on building and code enforcement? Betsy?
Another one of those areas that doesn't match the sheet. The sheet shows 20 hours for 24,232, and you've got 32,890. So is it a question of more hours than the 20?
Yes, it was figured on, the budget was, the budget was figured on 1,316 hours total for the year, which would be 25 hours a week.
Okay, so that's extra hours.
Yeah, it was figured on 25 hours instead of 20 hours.
Gotcha. Are there other questions or concerns? I have a quick question for you, John, on the contract services. It's down to $1. Did whatever contract services applied to this department previously, did they get moved elsewhere or are they no longer needed?
Well, I couldn't find where we'd made any expense this year towards them, so I put $1 in. I don't know what it was in past years, so this was just a case of where I didn't have something to justify the number. I put $1 in.
Okay. Well, we can always readdress it if information comes to light between now and our public hearing, so. If anyone has additional information, we can bring it up later.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of what it should be, so that's why I put $1 in.
If I could ask, I know there was funds in, and I thought it was in this department for closing up of any buildings that are condemned or town properties that have issues. And I think
that was up under town parade buildings, and I didn't put anything in that one either.
Okay.
That was, but I didn't put anything in that one either. Yeah, it was deeded property expenses, line 41941-440. You'd been carrying 10,000 and spent nothing for the last 2 years, so I've only put $500 in that line.
That had been something that had been used quite a bit in going back in history. May not even be that needed now, but there was a number of times where the building inspector or town-owned properties, such as some old buildings in Harvey Lake Estates that were left and all that, but might not be a concern at all now.
Bob?
I was just wondering, because we did have a situation of where we were periodically bringing in a building inspector from another town when our building inspector was not available. And I don't know whether that was handled under something like that, or whether that was just paid out of the CEO's salary.
I believe right now we have a deputy that we're paying out of the CEO salary, and we're thinking about the possibility that we may need to add a second deputy this winter because of a situation we know that's coming up. But we'd pay that out of the CEO because the regular building inspector wouldn't be coming in.
Yeah, and to the point on monies used, as Linda referenced, closing up buildings that were condemned or issues or whatever. Bob, I don't know if you remember any when you were selectman. I do remember 2 when I was a selectman. I have no idea if any situations have evolved since that in the last 20 years. But I do remember that there were expenses that we had in order to close those up, and they weren't part of deeding type of thing. So I almost think that we've got $1 on the line, so the line's open. So if we had a situation come up, it could still be applied to that line and just overexpended. I'm talking this out straight in my head.
Yeah, and as I said, there's $500 under parade buildings for town deeded property. We've got one that we're going to have to do something with. I think the board is planning to sell it come spring and sell it as is, with the understanding that it either has to be torn down or major repair. We were going to have the building inspector and a police officer go out and look at it. It's on Main Street, 55 Main Street, that was tax deeded several years ago. So that those situations do arise, but in my opinion, you try to sell them and have the new owner deal with the cleanup.
Right. Well, in my mind, and please, those of you who've got more knowledge than me, correct me if I'm wrong, deeded property that the town owns would come under the line you're referring to that has the 500 in it. But if a property owner still owns the property and the property needs to be condemned and closed up, closing that up expenses should not come out of the deeded property line.
I agree.
But as I said a couple of minutes ago, there's $1 on it. If a situation comes up, it can be overexpended and covered in some other way.
Yeah, good point.
Now that I've talked me through that. Are there any other questions or comments on building and code enforcement? Okay, seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace? Gotta unmute, honey. Are you good?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry. I
That's
thought I was
okay.
unmuted. I'm good.
No problem. It's getting later.
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes. I think I voted for Dan.
no, I think Dan voted for Dan. Maybe you were in unisons.
Aha, thank you.
Bob,
Yes.
thank you. Eric,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and yes. So we're 14-0. Okay, page 11, emergency management. 42901.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $6,921.
Thank you,
Second
Dan.
from Pam.
And Pam. Any discussion? Well, I'm going to offer something in here. I would like to thank Mr. Young for all of his efforts this year in helping us deal with our COVID situation, the recommendations, keeping in touch with the state, letting us know what's going on. Too many things that I can't even begin to list. And I'm really kind of bummed that we don't have a salary line for that person. That's a lot of hours and a lot of work.
You couldn't afford me.
We can afford you a little bit, Bob. Something better than zero in our clapping.
I'll give you a thumbs up too.
Well, I don't know. Somebody added $4,000 in. Is that for Bob?
No, that is we are contracting to have the town's emergency plan redone. Both Glenn and I, about 5 years ago, decided to do it on our own. And then we've had so much of a revolving door between the fire department and town hall that we just decided it was better to just have a contractor come in and do it.
I thought it was
2,000 of that will be taken by a state grant. So that's what that's for.
I thought it was for you, and they just left off a couple of zeros.
Exactly. Thank you, Paul.
Well, thank you all for the vote of confidence.
We can't begin to tell you how much everything that you've been doing this past year is appreciated, Bob. We can't begin.
And
We'd be a
past years as
disaster
well.
without you.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, so if I made a motion, Bob, to add a salary for you, would you turn it down?
I'm certainly not going to turn down money, and it shouldn't bump me up into a new tax bracket considering the way the town pays.
Well, this is true.
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, and I would even actually take it. I mean, it's, I haven't taken the stuff for the moderator or any of that other stuff, but yeah, if you put a number in, we'd make sure we picked up the check.
Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Do you want an amount with the motion?
I do. I'm thinking 5,000.
How much do people on the select board get?
2,000 and the chair gets 2,500.
Okay.
So I just tossed out what I'd like to see. I'm still waiting on a motion because I didn't make it.
I mean, one of the things to think about, though, is that if I were to leave this position, it's going to cost you to get somebody in here. And so that may be the direction that the Board of Selectmen need to be thinking about as time goes on.
Betsy?
Should be more like 10.
I agreed. And if we want to consider it, part of it retroactive for 2020.
For years.
Well, yes, there is that. So are you making that a motion, Betsy? I'm sorry?
I second it.
There is a motion on the floor, Ginger.
An amendment then. Unless we want to do what we have been doing.
Amendments are good too.
Yeah, I know, but then I got to vote twice on it. Takes up space.
So you taking your motion off, Ginger, for 5 and adding Betsy's for 10?
I did not make a motion. I just tossed out a figure. But as Linda pointed out, we have a motion on the floor now for the original 6921. If, as we've done with a few other lines, Pam would like to retract her second, Dan retract his motion, we could do a new motion. Tom?
So whatever the motion is, would it be for a stipend like the select board and not a salary?
I would guess a stipend. I'm not talking off the top of my head. I just feel that there should be some financial gratitude for that position. There's an awful lot involved, even without a COVID year. Hal?
I'm going to defer to John shortly, but I'm thinking if you could establish what amount you think is appropriate, then we'll ask the interim TA and our new TA how best to handle that, salary versus stipend versus other options, because that may be more of a administrative thing that we need to think about. Just my thought.
Okay. And we can always revisit that
Yes. Yeah.
section on a different night.
But now,
I'm sorry.
Ginger,
Okay.
John has his hand up. Let's do it now.
Well, wait a minute.
Ginger,
Linda just clicked in. Yes, Linda.
just a suggestion for
Please.
procedure.
Yep.
When you have a motion on the floor
Yep.
in a second, those people chose that number. Procedurally, and this is my opinion, when people on a committee are asked to rescind,
Yeah.
it appears as if they are being asked to remove what they decided. I think that's why I think amending the motions
Yep.
in no way looks like any level of intimidation to anyone who may feel that they want the number that's there or,
Yep.
retain what they said. And I know we've gotten a little bit into the habit of doing that, but when you do amendments, it doesn't appear as if there's any intimidation to those who actually put the motion on the floor.
Understood.
Okay?
Yep. Thank you. So.
Recognize John.
I'm sorry?
Recognize John.
John.
Yeah, don't forget, if you make a motion for 10,000, you really should put $765 in for Social Security and Medicare. So if you're making a motion to add 10,000 plus Social Security, the bottom line would go to 17,686.
Thank you. Okay, so we had the original motion. I don't know that Betsy made, I believe, an amendment for the 10,000. I don't know that we got a second on that, did we?
I did a second. I seconded.
Steve,
I
you
did
seconded
original.
it? Okay.
So Ginger, you want me to fix my original to include that?
Well, now that we have that, we probably should.
So $10,765 in addition to this.
Okay. Okay, so we have an amendment to add $10,765 to emergency management. Are there any additional comments or questions regarding the amendment? Okay, seeing none, let's vote on the amendment. This is just to add that 10,765. Betsy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
Grace,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Michael Moore,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Betty,
Yeah.
Paul,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Bob,
Abstain.
Eric,
Absolutely.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and I concur absolutely. So the
Party at
amendment,
Bob's.
I'm sorry?
Party at Bob's house.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the amendment passed 1301. So that makes the main motion the new number for that department of 17,686.
Right.
17,686.
Okay. Is there further discussion regarding the new amount? Okay. Seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Again, because it's compensation, now I abstain.
Yeah, I just have to officially ask you.
Yep.
Eric?
Another big absolutely.
Yep. Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes. So final vote 1301. And final is for 17,686. Just doing my little accounting stuff here. Okay, we're gonna need to, in my mind, skip over highway administration because our highway person is hopefully out plowing roads. And I would rather defer any discussion until he's able to be with us. So hopefully come Monday night, he'll be able to be available to answer any questions that we might have or explain his budget. So going on to page.
Can you take a 10-minute
14.
break, Ginger?
I'm sorry?
Can you take a 10-minute break or something like that?
We can certainly do that. Would you guys like to take a 10-minute break?
I got doggies I gotta put out.
That's okay. I got a phone call or several that evidently
Yeah,
seem
they
urgent
don't-
that I should
They
return.
don't do rain or snow. I gotta throw them out the door.
And then
Never be
hold
spoiled.
the door closed so they don't rush back in, right?
Well, it's unbelievable.
You gotta put doggy doors in, they go up by themselves.
No, these dogs don't do rain or snow. They just don't do it. They just like,
We're
it's raining.
back
I'm gonna melt. So
225.
Okay, we'll be back at
2:25. Sounds
2:25, folks. Thank you.
okay.
Fire Department, White Rock Senior Living, 6 Center Road, Building 3, for an alarm activation. Operate the shield 2. For the Ball Fire Department, 6 Center, White Rock Senior Living, Building 3, alarm activation, operate shield 2. 1419. Negative, do you need them? Nothing was on fire.
Bob? It's Linda. You're muted. Can you unmute yourself, Bob?
I'm unmuted right now, yeah.
Okay. I just got a phone call from the lady delivering mail.
Yep.
That a tree is down just actually on my street, just beyond me. And she pulled some of it off, but I can't find Chris Brown's. The number I had for him is not his newest number.
Okay.
Can you let somebody know?
Yep. If worst comes to worst, we'll just let the PD know.
Okay.
So this is on Old Turnpike?
Yes.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Linda, do you want that new number?
Yes.
It's a town phone, so I'll just go ahead and give it out. It's 603 219 7281.
Okay, I'll try to call him.
I mean, any one of us can take care of it. I mean, you're working. You can let Bob or I do it, or I mean, Bob's got to get votes, I suppose.
That's great.
I'll give it a shot. Bob, you want me to call Chris?
And then I'm gonna put this in here so I have it.
Yeah, hang on to that. Bob, you were muted. What were you saying?
I was saying I've got his 953 number. So yeah, why don't you call
That's
that?
not correct.
Yeah, he's been changing numbers fast and furious. I've got the most recent one, so I'll give him a call.
Appreciate it.
Capital one.
Says he's on it.
Just FYI, I'm now on battery backup.
Bob, does that mean that you have lost power on at your house, or does that just?
That's what it would suggest, but let me just check out in the other part of the house because
Okay.
my stuff just went on. I'm still on, so I mean, I'll be good for about 2 hours.
We're not gonna be here for 2 hours.
I've got to move my generator just in case.
Ginger, you going to the top of page 14?
That's pretty much what I'm thinking because Chris handles
all the other in between.
It must have been a momentary voltage drop because everything's back again.
Okay.
That way, Bob.
Well, I looked out the window while I was answering my urgent messages and I've got stuff dropping in my backwoods. Branches and stuff coming down, so. We'll get through as much as we can get through.
So we do street lighting?
I think we can hold on that. It's only $1, but we'll pick it up when we pick up highway and sanitation.
And waste disposal.
Right. So if we go to the top of page 14. So just Grace and Mike and Dan, I'm assuming, are all back.
Please be careful if you go outside.
I noticed a couple of cars. I'm on 202, which is supposed to be a state road. And I've got cars going by about 10 miles an hour and using their flashers because while the plow's been down once that I can see, it looks like a couple of inches are sitting in the middle of the road still, so.
Well, I just went from the top step to flat my back on the patio.
Oh, no.
Somehow I bumped my head. And as I was laying there looking up at the sky, I thought, well, isn't that nice that we just gave emergency management? Yay! Because there I was. I was flat on my back before I even knew I was out the door.
Oh, good Lord.
Well, Pam, while you were laying there, I got a call on the town phone from the mail lady, and there's a tree down right before you, I guess, or part of a tree.
Oh, no kidding.
I just walked out to see if I could see it, but it's between you and Janet, I think.
I saw the mail delivery coming by, but maybe she was blocked getting out, or.
She said she moved most of it. I think Matt called Chris to let him know.
Yeah, I got the thumbs up from Matt just then. Okay, so I'll be back in. All right, we're looking at Health Department, 44-111. Do we have a motion?
Move the amount of $8,388.
Thank you, Betty. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Is there any discussion? I'm sorry, I heard something. Oh, it's the voice in my head. Okay, so since I'm not seeing anybody raising issues, we'll do a roll call. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan? I'll come back and see if Dan joins us. Michael Moore?
I just got back, so I'm not even sure what we're on, so I'm going to stay.
We're on Health Department, the top of page 14. Because we're going to skip highway and sanitation until Chris can join us.
Okay, I'll go. I'm okay with it. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Thank you. Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
I'm yes. Dan, are you back with us? Okay, we'll skip Dan. So the vote is 13-1. Brings us to animal control. 44141.
Ginger, did you mean 1301? Because of the absence of Dan?
No, oh, I'm sorry. It should be 13-0. I'm sorry.
13-0.
13-0. Thank you. God, I'm glad you guys are watching my back. I appreciate it. So animal control, we're looking at 11,408. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Betty. Second
Second.
was who?
By Pam.
Thank you.
Pam.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Thank you. Michael Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so we're back to 14-0. Okay, moving to page 15. Community support agencies. 44151.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $30,646.
Thanks, Dan. Second?
I'll second.
Uh,
Mike Jobin.
Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
I can almost recognize voices, but we're all coming from the same direction. Okay, any discussion, questions?
I'm curious why. I can see that Lamprey, for some reason, didn't submit a request to support their activities, but then I see that we're kicking up our court-appointed special advocates by $4,500, and I'm wondering what's precipitating that.
I'm thinking that Lamprey was the one that is not functioning anymore, and the funds went over to what they recommended for the, what was it, the special advocates. So if Hal is right there, am I correct that Lamprey was the one that was not functioning anymore?
I'm going to defer to John, but that's my recollection also. Sorry.
Lamprey is the one that's not functioning anymore, but the $5,000, I'm wondering if there's a typo there. That's what I want to look up.
Yeah, I'm looking at the packet that was sent out.
They did recommend somebody else, but I don't know if we caught that.
No, but that's not, I mean, the court-appointed special advocate, I think, is a typo.
Yeah, because I don't
I think
think
it
I
should be.
even saw a letter from CASA, the court-appointed special advocate. I could have missed it.
No, I think it's supposed to be 500, not 5,000.
I think you're right.
Yeah, that was my big fingers hitting too many zeros.
I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty
CASA
sure
didn't
that's
mention
500.
money, but- Oh, no, they didn't ask for money. Yep.
No, I meant to level fund budget them, and because they hadn't requested it, I meant to have 500 in there, not 5,000. I don't know why I hadn't caught that before.
So we're going down to what, 26,646?
Well,
you'd take off 4,500, so it'd be 26,146. Yeah, 146.
Take off what?
Be careful here. I thought that they recommended somebody else, though.
They did recommend somebody.
Yeah, but they didn't recommend that one. They recommended a nutrition group, I think.
It was Meals on Wheels.
Right. So did we add that?
No, we did not add Meals on Wheels.
This is.
I would like to make a suggestion in the interest of time.
Yep.
Yeah, let's skip this one and come back to
There's
it.
a little confusion here that we bypass this section
Yes.
and let the town hall sort it out, and we can come back to it perhaps Monday evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair,
Good
do we
point.
need a motion to table it to Monday?
Second?
I'll second
Okay.
it, Mike Moore.
So. All right, so we have a motion and a second to defer this until Monday. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Mike Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Tobin?
Yes.
And yes, so that section will be deferred until Monday. Okay. So our next section is Welfare Administration, 44411.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move the amount of $12,000.
Thank you, Dan.
Second.
Thank you, Betty. Do we have any discussion? Bob?
I'd just be curious from the selectmen why they chose $10,000 instead of what was requested by the department.
Going over to Hal for that, and then over to John for that number adjustment. I think it has to do with year-to-date expenditure.
Yeah, year to date, and also we changed the model to where we're only paying as people call in. Or at least we changed to that. So for example, before we were drawing a regular salary out of there, we were up until just very shortly, when people called in, the welfare director made an appointment with them, came in, talked with them, and he charged us on a per diem or / hourly basis. So we reduced it because up till this point, we have not been using that amount. I mean, with COVID, you just don't know, but so far so good. And so we felt comfortable reducing it.
John?
And just one further note, the welfare person that we had cut back to only per diem has now taken another job. Walter is handling welfare right now, and we're going to have to wait and see what happens with COVID as we go forward.
Yeah. We may end up having to hire somebody, but I think the model going forward would be similar to what we did before, per diem or per hour, as opposed to a salary, because we just aren't having the numbers that justify more.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, seeing none. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Thank you. Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Michael Moore?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes, so it's 14-0. So that brings us down to 44451 for medical payments welfare.
Move
$1.
$1.
Okay, Betty. We have a second.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Dan.
Excuse me one second. I think I might have an emergency. Hold on 1 second, guys.
No power on Ridge Road.
All right, thank you. My husband just got a phone call from someone who's up on Ridge Road saying there's no power. So we'll keep that in mind. We'll continue.
Ginger, are they saying that they are trying to get into the meeting?
No. This is just an update as far as what the outside conditions are. That's all.
Thank you.
And wires.
All right, I got Betty as the motion, but I didn't catch who was the second.
Dan.
Thank you, Dan. And I'm assuming for a buck, we don't have any discussion. Would I be correct?
True.
Okay. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom? Where'd Tom go?
I lost him.
We'll bypass Tom.
Yeah, we lost him.
Yeah, he was on battery, right?
No.
No.
No, that was Bob.
Sorry.
Right now, just out of, you've got 128 people in Northwood who are out of power for Eversource, and you have 9 people that are out under co-op. So it's beginning to hit Northwood.
It's beginning to hit. Okay, guys, let's see if we can get a couple more done before it hits the rest of us. Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Please.
Yes.
Michael? Mike Moore?
Yeah. Hey.
Do I see Mike? I don't see Mike. Okay, we'll come back. Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes. Oh, is that Gail?
No, that's you. Bob,
Thank you.
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and yes, so Mike Moore, you back in? Nope, not yet. And Tom, are you back in? Nope, not yet. Okay, so that's 12-0. Next section is welfare vendors.
Can we continue without them based on what we said earlier?
Well, I'm not sure if they've lost power or if they're just temporarily away. Linda, what do you think?
I think we're okay as long as they have a number they can call
Okay.
to say that they're out if they
Yeah,
have cell phones.
Yeah, everybody got the message that if you lose it, call
Two
Linda.
numbers you can call, either Susan or myself.
Right. Okay, we still have our quorum, so,
Just watch your quorum.
yeah, we will.
Or using a phone, you can call directly into the meeting like my voice is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the top of 16. Welfare vendor payments, 44452.
Move the amount of $9,500.
Thank you, Betty.
Second.
Dan, okay?
Ginger,
Yes.
Tom just left me a message saying that he was kicked off.
Tom was kicked off?
Yes.
Okay, did he indicate if he was going to try calling in or no?
Trying to get back on. I'm sorry, I'm trying to look and see if anyone else is missing too.
Susan, is Matt still there if I need him in a minute?
Yes, he is.
Thank you.
Yes, I see Matt.
Thank you. I only see 4 people, so.
Al, you have your hand up.
Let's just ask Susan to be diligent, because if people do drop off, they'll have to be left back into the meeting, I believe.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, but I only know it when they come back. I can't.
Yeah, can't.
I mean,
yeah.
I guess I could try to keep track, but
No, just wait till but just be diligent, especially now, please.
I'm only used to having one child.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, girl, get this way.
Okay, so I just let Tom back in. So, okay.
Okay, yep, I see. Welcome back, Tom. I see connecting to audio. You're back, Sir Thomas.
Whose chuckle is that, John?
So that was a power outage on Catamount Road. Is Mike Moore here?
Yeah.
No, he was out at the same time.
Dropped off as well.
I just let Tim and Mike back in.
Mike just came back on.
Mike's here.
Mike is coming back on.
Okay.
And we're picking up Tim again.
Okay. Welcome back, guys.
So we're on page
We're on
15.
top of 16
Did
for
we finish
welfare
that?
vendor payments.
All right, so we finished the other one and we're ready to go to the other one. We
Correct.
Ginger, were you planning to go to 3?
Yeah, and at this point, I'm almost wondering if we should call it, or
I just lost power up here, so.
Yeah, my suggestion is this. If we finish this current one that we're on, welfare vendor payments, we call it for today. Pick back up again Monday night at 7.
Amen.
Okay. So that being said, we have a motion and a second for welfare vendor payments. Do we have any discussion on the $9,500? Okay, seeing none. Betsy,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes,
Grace,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
Mike Moore,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Ted,
Yes.
Pam,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Mike Jobin,
Yes.
and yes. That's 14-0. Okay, we will pick up Monday night, depending upon whether Chris can join us. If Chris joins us, then we'll start off with highway and sanitation. If Chris is unable to join us, we'll pick back up with parks and recreation.
Monday at 7?
Ginger, can
Yes,
you
Linda.
confirm the time, please?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we had it posted for 7 PM. Linda, I don't think we've got time to repost it should we decide to start earlier. Am I correct?
It's posted for
You
7.
have time.
Well, it's 24 hours, so if you want to do it.
You have time. It can be done on Monday.
All right, so what's the will of the committee? Do we want to try and start at 6:30 and get that extra
Yes.
half hour?
Yes.
Hold on a second. What's John?
John?
You can change it now, but Monday would be too late because it wouldn't be 24 hours before the Monday night change.
Right.
So if you're going
I'm
to change
sorry.
it now,
I'm
somebody has
thinking-
to do it. Yeah, Tuesday you could post for 6:30 on Monday easily enough. You're right, Linda. But
I was
if you want
thinking
to
it was
change Monday,
Tuesday, yeah.
if you want to change Monday, somebody will have to go online and change it, and somebody will have to change the posting at the town hall and post office. And I suggest today's not a good day to do that, so we probably ought to stay with 7
All
for
right.
Monday.
That works for me. We'll stay at 7 for Monday.
Okay,
Well,
so
the other thing is you can continue this meeting to a day and time certain.
That's true.
All right, which means we would not need to repost, correct?
Correct.
okay, so I have a Zoom all set up for that. Can we use this different? We can use a different Zoom, right?
Whatever you prefer.
Same one.
Okay.
You
Make a
can start it
suggestion.
whenever you want.
If you want to be certain that anyone who may have seen that 7 o'clock, but
I've had it set for 7 o'clock since October. So-
Let's just leave it at 7 o'clock, folks. It sounds like there'll be far less confusion and we won't be alienating anyone who wants to watch in.
Yep.
I'll email everyone that link today.
Okay, hold on. Betsy, you had something?
I just think we need to be consistent with the same start time all nights. So are we still going to do Tuesday, or are we taking Tuesday off now? Or are we going to?
No, you had Wednesday.
Well, we have scheduled Monday and Wednesday already. We talked about adding Tuesday night and everybody seemed to be in agreement in case we got bumped out early today. We're looking at about an hour earlier than we might normally have stayed.
We
I
talked
think
about,
I would like to add the Tuesday just in case. If we end up finishing up on Monday night or have very little left and we can do it on Wednesday, that's great. But if we get bogged down, I'd really feel more comfortable having the added night if necessary. My thoughts. Betty?
we had talked about doing Tuesday at 6:30. Do we want to stick with the 6:30 or stick with the 7?
No, I think we should stick with the 7.
Okay.
When I suggested the 6:30, I was thinking that we might not get anywhere near as much done today as we've accomplished. So that's why I was thinking the 6:30. So are we in agreement? We will meet Monday night at 7, as has been posted. Linda or Susan will take care of posting us for Tuesday night, also at 7. We'll determine Monday night if we're going to need that night or not. And in the meantime, if there are no other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion to recess this meeting until Monday night at 7.
I
So
second.
moved.
Okay, who moved?
I
Betty,
did.
was that you? You're usually the first on the draw for that.
You know.
Who seconded?
I seconded. Me.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Okay, roll call to get out. Betsy?
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Grace?
Yes.
Dan?
Please, God, yes.
How do I follow up with that? Mike Moore?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay, glad you're joining us. Steve?
Yes.
Betty?
Yes.
Paul? Paul's already left the building. No, he's just muted.
unmute.
But I know Paul. He'll want to leave now.
All right, I do.
Okay. Ted?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Bob?
Doing a happy dance.
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Mike Jobin?
Yes.
And yes. Okay, so we are in recess. Please, everybody be safe. Don't go anywhere today if you don't have to. And we'll see you Monday night.
Bye.
Take
Okay.
care, folks.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye,
all.
everybody.
John and Walter, I just sent an email that's fairly time bound. If you can check your emails real quick and shoot me a response.
We're all set though, right?
We are all set,
Will do.
folks.
Thanks
Thank you.
again, Ginger. Went well for a big meeting like this.
It's been challenging.
Yeah, but you did well.
It's flowing much better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Do you know what I think was helpful is that there was
Susan, can you please turn off the recording?
few enough people that